Good morning. So thank you to Armando and MISI for hosting us today. And thank you, Amir, for your opening remarks. And thank you, Earl, for sharing about the MDOT. Really appreciate the insight there. So, oh, look, here we've already got it up here. So you're probably wondering, like, why do I have a safety and security briefing slide up here? Because it's really important. It's important to us in the railroad industry. It's important to us in transportation industry. And it should be important to everyone everywhere that works around heavy equipment and industrial control systems like we do. So I am going to do a quick safety briefing here because that's what we do at Amtrak. Our physical address here is 7,000 Columbia Gateway Parkway, something like that. In the event that there's an emergency, do we have a volunteer to call 911? Who's got a phone? All right, you right there. What's your name, sir? Alex. Okay, thank you. And you're Corey in the back. You be the backup in case Alex is the one that needs help. Is there anybody here that's CPR certified, qualified? Okay, Justin. And if Justin needs help, Scott, you're his backup. Thank you very much. So in the event that we do need to evacuate, someone will communicate that need either up here, or someone will probably yell through the door, we need to get out of here, or you'll hear a fire alarm or something go off. And if there are people that need help, make sure you help them get out of the building. And if I would assume that our assembly point is somewhere on the far end of this parking lot, because that's the quickest way out. So we'll just call that our assembly point if we need to evacuate. And then here within the room, let's be aware of our surroundings. Some of the chairs are quite close together. I see a lot of bags in between the chairs. Those present some good tripping hazards. See some coffee cups laying around, so just be careful about those things. And at Amtrak, we certainly take health and welfare a priority. And I want all of you to take wellness a priority too in your lives. That's both your physical and your mental health. In the cybersecurity business, a lot of times we tend to get into a lot of stressful situations with the work that we do. So make sure we're taking some time for ourselves. It is flu season, so make sure your flu vaccination. And I think we're still in the COVID season, so make sure you're up to date on your shots there too. If you are sick or not feeling well, you should probably just isolate, stay home. I know several people have joined us via Zoom or Teams. I didn't see what platform we're using here. And for security, if you see something, say something, report it to the appropriate authorities. And in the unlikely event of an active shooter, we want to make sure we're prepared for those situations too. And just know that we have 3 behaviors that we can choose from. That's run, hide, or fight. So our first choice in that scenario would be to run, leaving the building through the same evacuation route that I described before. Second choice would be to hide. I don't really like this room for a place to hide, so still try to run to get out of here. And as a last resort, we can fight. Do we have any law enforcement here? Military? All the military left? Oh, do we have a law enforcement back there? So get behind that guy. He'll fight for you. And last but not least, cybersecurity. So let's pay attention to phishing traps and emails. Let's not click on any links or suspicious attachments. And let's report all potential cyber incidents to the appropriate authorities, whoever that may be for you. And kind of last, I know, sir, back in the corner there, who's your CEO? Yes. Amir. So I'm going to tell you right now, Amir is not going to send you a text message today and ask you to run out and go get him gift cards. And if he did send you a text message, he's surely not going to sign his whole signature block, right? Does that sound true? You're not going to do that, right? Okay. But so you're probably wondering like why we started with this, but it is important. Safety is important. It is part of our culture in the railroad industry. And as we get further on through our talk here today, I think it'll become a little bit more apparent of why I wanted to start with this safety briefing. So can I get a show of hands? Who here started their career in the railroad industry? 2, 3. 3 people, yeah. And who here started your career in cybersecurity? Okay, few more here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I didn't start my career in the rail industry or cybersecurity, and neither did many of the people that we work with on a daily basis. Uh, in fact, most of my career was in the Department of Defense. Prior to Amtrak, there's plenty of stories that I can't talk about, and maybe there's a few that I can share at another time. So I'm often asked, why Amtrak? Why did you come to Amtrak? And nearly 4 years ago, I was all set to leave the Department of Defense and enter the world of big tech in a highly visible role. And when a recruitment firm reached out to me and told me about this opportunity at Amtrak, and I thought about it for a while. And as I progressed through the interviews and some discussions that I had and did my own research, I realized that it's actually the opportunity of a lifetime. You see, Amtrak has the same enterprise technology challenges as every other, modern company today. But what makes Amtrak really interesting is the operational technology, the industrial control systems, SCADA systems, electrical systems, positive train control, communications and signals. Did I mention trains? Yeah. In the railroad industry, we and more specifically in the passenger railroad industry, we have the unique challenge of managing risk and operational technology that securely moves trains and safely delivers our passengers to their destination. Kind of a simpler way to put it, trains are kind of cool. And that was enough to kind of get me in the door. So I started my journey with Amtrak, and I was drinking through a fire hose. And just under a year later, I was a CISO. Thanks, Bill. And I was still drinking through from a fire hose. There was no manual, no regulations to tell me how to do my job. Unlike what I had at the Department of Defense. There's pretty clear regulations and manuals that you can find to do just about anything. But eventually things did start to make sense to me. And I want to share a little bit of things that I've learned about Amtrak and a little bit more about Amtrak and kind of why that's relevant to cyber strategy. One of the most important things that I think I learned is Amtrak is not just a passenger rail company. Amtrak is the owner and operator of critical infrastructure, and not just one, but 3 critical infrastructure sectors. Most people recognize that Amtrak is in the transportation sector, but there's actually two subsectors that support that transportation infrastructure work. But did you know we're also in the energy sector? We generate our own power for all our operations on the Northeast Corridor. That's the route between Washington, D.C. and Boston, 457 miles of Amtrak-owned territory. And we do provide that power to our partner railroads, or tenants as we call them, who operate their trains on our tracks, such as the MARC, or New Jersey Transit, Long Island Railroad, MTA, SEPTA. We've got a number of partners that we share our railroad with. And just think about that for a minute in terms of what that means for interoperability of our systems. And maybe you'll hear a little bit later some folks on my team about how we go about tackling some of those challenges. The third critical infrastructure sector we're in is emergency services. Did you know Amtrak has its own federalized police force? That's right. There's over 500 police officers today spread out throughout the country, and that team is growing as well. But wait, that's not all. With over 500 stations, buildings, maintenance facilities, 6 square blocks in Manhattan, 623 route miles with 2,408 total Amtrak-owned track infrastructure, Amtrak is a sizable real estate company. And one more thing, with unprecedented levels of funding through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, Amtrak is the recipient of $66 billion in federal funding to modernize intercity passenger rail services in the U.S. And much of this funding is going towards building modern infrastructure, new stations, maintenance facilities. This means Amtrak's quickly becoming a pretty sizable construction company. So Amtrak is a transportation company, an energy company, an emergency services company, a real estate company, a construction company. Did I miss anything? Oh, so Amtrak is also a business to consumer technology company with our e-commerce front door, interaction with our customers through websites, mobile apps, onboard passenger information systems in train stations. But this also means that we have to deal with things like the payment card industry, privacy, Americans with Disability Act compliance, and kind of the list goes on. Amtrak's also refreshing our fleet of train sets. We've already begun service with new venture cars out in the Midwest, and we purchased new Siemens ALC 42, that's the diesel locomotives, and ALC 42E, which are hybrid locomotives. So they'll do diesel and electric. It's pretty cool, actually. We've also partnered with the French train manufacturer called Alstom, and they are building right now up in Hornell, New York, our new Acela trains that are set to go in revenue service in late 2023. So we definitely got a lot going on. And the technology that's on board the new trains today is often referred to data centers on wheels because there's so much more technology on board today. So I'd like to share a little bit more about the company's investment strategy, because you have to understand the business a little bit more before we get into probably what you really want to hear about. The Amtrak is very focused on the future. This includes a comprehensive strategy plan to develop and expand our nation's transportation infrastructure, enhance mobility, drive economic growth, and meaningfully contribute to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Amtrak's 15-year strategy for expansion will connect dozens of new city pairs, 160 communities to Amtrak service. And our vision is that the future of modern passenger rail network that creates over 500,000 jobs and delivers over $150 billion in economic benefits by 2035. As the nation's largest intercity passenger rail service, Amtrak has connected people and communities across America for over half a century. But Amtrak doesn't just get riders from point A to point B. It serves as a catalyst for moving our economy forward, creating jobs, protecting our environment, and connecting people, cities, and our nation to a brighter future. Keeping our future on track will require a national investment and a renewed commitment to innovation, infrastructure, and ensuring access to dependable and modern rail. And an investment in our rail infrastructure is an investment in America. You can learn more about kind of what I've just shared about Amtrak's plan at AmtrakConnectsUs or US.com. So why did I kind of share all of that with you? All this background of kind of where Amtrak is at today and the new technologies, that's part of our trains and infrastructure, is that there's one thing I know for certain, it's my grandfather's railroad. It is a completely different railroad than it was before. And you have to know what business you are in order to properly align your cybersecurity strategy. You have to know what you're trying to grow, what you're trying to empower, to enable, to protect. And you have to love something to be able to defend it well. We're just not in the transportation business. We are in the business of connecting people, connecting communities, and generating economic opportunities for years to come. So how do we defend all that? Well, I think it kind of starts with a vision. Provide cybersecurity capabilities and processes to enable people, processes, and technology to do the right thing the right way while ensuring resiliency of operations. That's kind of a short vision statement that kind of is the preamble to our strategy. But next, we have to select a framework. When I started at Amtrak, I thought I was kind of being brought there to bring NIST, because of my background in DoD, bring NIST to the company. And I quickly learned that we weren't quite ready yet. So we selected the Center for Internet Security, Critical Security Controls. And at the time, there were 20 critical security controls. There's like 16 or 18 today. They keep changing it around. Kind of like the naming convention on Microsoft products. That just gave us 20 things to focus on and prioritize where we had weaknesses and where there are trends in the threat space. We've since graduated to NIST Cybersecurity Framework, Risk Management Framework. ISO 27001 might work better for your organization if you operate international. And we also incorporate more tactical frameworks into our daily operations like Purdue, IAC 65443, MITRE ATT&CK and Engage, which I think you'll probably hear from Nick a little bit later. And I suspect you'll hear more, yes, about that. And you'll hear more from my team as well later this afternoon in their talk. So now that you've selected a framework, how do we know what we need to do? What do we include in the strategy? Well, you have to perform a maturity assessment against the framework that you've selected to determine your current state profile. Identify your strengths and weaknesses. Then you have to collaborate with leadership, business stakeholders, and identify, with the business strategy and with business industry experts to determine what your overall maturity goals need to be. That becomes your target profile. So now you have a current state profile and a target profile. You just need to connect the dots. What objectives need to get completed to get from here to there. There are 3 foundational steps that enable teams to deliver on strategy. I'm sure you've all heard this: people, process, and technology. I'll break down each of them very briefly. So people, ask yourself questions like, what are the resource requirements to deliver each objective of the strategy? What are the resource requirements to sustain operations once an objective is delivered? How do teams need to be organized? What talent is required? Talent acquisition, growth, and retention is critical and needs to be a part of the strategy. We leverage recruitment firms for the most critical and hard to find resources. Also leverage your networks like LinkedIn and industry peers. With the reported global shortage of cyber talent, plan to be part of the solution. We recently onboarded 36 university interns to a new cybersecurity internship program. The interns will rotate through every cybersecurity job role to help them identify what particular job role in cybersecurity is the best fit for them, and they will be prepared to enter the workforce upon graduation. Partner with military transition organizations to utilize the Skill Bridge program, providing opportunities for your organization and transitioning veterans. On process, this is really the how we carry out cybersecurity functions. What processes need to be created to support functions? What processes can be improved, eliminated, or automated? The key to good process is to ensure that it not only solves a need, but that it is repeatable, sustainable, scalable, and well documented. Undocumented processes are not repeatable or sustainable. Automated processes, however, are scalable when built correctly. And for technology, this is really the primary delivery route for a lot of cybersecurity capabilities. Almost all cybersecurity services are delivered or enabled by technology. Identify what technology is available to support the people charged with delivering a service, or what technology can automate a process. Always look at what you have first before looking at the shiny new object. Understand what you have first and decide if it's a good fit. If not, look towards consolidation or enhancement. There are typically 2 routes when incorporating technology into a strategy. Those are the best of breed strategy or the platform approach. I do prefer to enable security natively by design wherever possible. So that kind of has me leaning a little bit more towards the platform approach. However, particularly when it comes to operational technology, there are not a lot of solutions in this space. In fact, just a few years ago, I attended Black Hat and DEF CON, and they had vendors that announced that they were doing things in the operational technology space, but really it was just them doing the same things that they do in the IT space, trying to do it in the OT space. Today, there are still very few solutions providers in the OT space, and even fewer in the rail specific space. Now, if people, processes, and technology will get you to a foundational strategy, how do you turn that into a world-class strategy? Well, there's two things that I like to weave in across the people, process, and technology that I call force multipliers. Those are partnerships and culture. So partnerships, cybersecurity really is a team sport. We cannot solve any of these challenges on our own. Internal and external partnerships are required. Partnerships for recruiting talent, partnerships with industry experts and consultant firms, partnerships with organizations such as Association of American Railroad or the American Public Transportation Association. Partnerships with government, Department of Transportation, state and federal, the Transportation Security Administration, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, law enforcement, and the list goes on. We are better together, and really, I think that's why we're all here today. Culture. Management consultant and author Peter Drucker is famously known for saying, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Without knowing the culture of your organization, your strategy won't be successful. I've heard many people say that organizations need to have a culture of cybersecurity, but really changing or creating a new culture, especially in a legacy organization, is very difficult and painful. I think there's an easier way. Identify what the real culture of your organization is and figure out how to move the needle just a little bit in the direction of cybersecurity. Last year, as I was working on the refresh of our cybersecurity strategy, I was thinking about how do I solve the culture challenge? And I started thinking and having a discussion around the safety and security briefing. Because safety is a big part of Amtrak. It is a big part of our industry. And what I noticed was that before every meeting, before every job, before every shift, Amtrak does a safety briefing. But there was no standard format on how that safety briefing was conducted, how it was being delivered. So I partnered with the safety organization, Amtrak Police, Communications, and our branding team to create the slide that I briefed at the beginning. And you'll remember the section on the end here with cybersecurity. So that slide is now used across the country at the start of every meeting, hundreds of times a day, with a gentle and consistent reminder that cybersecurity is part of our culture. That's how you leverage culture to advance strategy. So this is not our grandfather's railroad. This is our railroad, our children's, our grandchildren's railroad. Know what you're trying to grow, to empower, to enable, to protect. Love what you defend. We are not just in the transportation business. We are in the business of connecting people, connecting communities, and generating economic opportunities for generations to come. Thank you. Do we have time for questions, or are we good? Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thanks. That was informative. You talked about trying to inculcate this into your culture.
Yeah. So approximately 1 year ago, that slide that you see. So the question was, for the people online, the question was, when do we start using that safety briefing, and how have we seen that actually change the culture in the company, correct? Okay. So actually October of 2021, that was created. We introduced it at our leadership summit in November of 2021. And where I think I've really seen this change is in the number of employee reported cybersecurity incidents. It has increased 300%. The other place I've seen it change is in the our phishing simulation tests that we do. the sustained fail rate, we'll call it fail rate, over the last 10 months has been 3%. So a company of Amtrak size and 50 plus years old, 97% of our users, our employees, successfully pass our phishing simulation test. Does that answer your question?
It did. Thank you for that reminder. Please do so. So, heard from our your NDOT rep. So the amount of attempts is what? And does that, what does that look like in your?
So it's really the same thing. I mean, I think, everyone that has assets that, touch the internet somehow are seeing, the heightened, state of the threat actor that's out there. And that typically manifests itself by, banging on the firewall and, increased, blocked attempts. So I don't think we're unique in that regard. I think we see the same level and volume and frequency of attacks as pretty much everybody else in this space. Yes, sir.
Earlier you mentioned updating your thinking and some of the challenges and successes that you've had with supply chain.
Sure. So the gentleman's question was, as earlier as I discussed, the refresh activity with our fleet and trains and rolling stock and other types of things that we are building new or buying for Amtrak, and to highlight maybe what some of the challenges are within the supply chain itself. Is that okay? So I think one of the biggest challenge that we have to overcome with a lot of this activity kind of gets back to culture. And within the original equipment manufacturer community, there's really not a culture of cybersecurity, but they still have that same kind of safety culture mindset. An example would be that cybersecurity was never included on any contracts for equipment, for rolling stock, for maintenance facilities, for a train, previously. So starting to get that language into contracts is absolutely critical. And not just from the cybersecurity perspective, but the modern railroads or modern partners of railroads need to start thinking about the technology lifecycle of their assets. So, for example, we buy a train set, we're expecting to get 30 or 40 years out of that asset. Does anybody know, well, besides maybe some mainframes, what kind of technology asset you might get, 30 or 40 years out of? Not really that much. And with advances in innovation, I think we want to, have those advancements and innovation reflect through, let's say the train sets that we buy. So, we need to call upon our partners in the manufacturer business to bake in the technology life cycles into the overall maintenance life cycle of an asset. So while we'll get 30 or 40 years out of the asset, you may refresh the technology 5, 6, 7, 8 times during the life of that asset. Yes, Earl.
And I would think you have the same issue we have. I remember like over a decade ago, being a deputy chief safety officer, we do safety certification.
Yeah.
And what's happened with a lot of our equipment is that the software systems have been growing because of the complexity and importance. So you cannot neglect, I'm sure you have the same issue. You have to do safety certification on the software aspects of this heavy equipment that you get in the rail industry to ensure there's not a critical vulnerability there that could impact customer safety if someone wants to get access to that software or some other type of failure. That's grown over the years, so that our partners have to take it as seriously as we do, which the challenge earlier, I think it's less so now, though
they're starting to come around.
They're starting to come around.
Yeah.
It's also important that when they find a vulnerability anywhere in the country, they let us know as soon as possible. That's it. We're very unhappy when we read the newspaper or something.
Yeah, so this gets back into we're all in this together, right? And we all need to be, with respect to maybe sensitivities with specific details of our environment, but we need to be transparent with each other about what we're seeing in the industry so that we can overcome this together. And we're better together. Are we good? Thank you.